So we have quite a lot of questions from the attendees. Question to the panel regarding speed and agility. How do you build a quick, efficient and agile company sustainably, not overworking people or taking advantage of people?
Well, like I said, so GWOP started with just me and my business partner, and we was doing everything. So we was able to be agile because we would just shoot, put something out, etc., etc. Now we've still got a small team. I think we've got, like I said, we've got like 6 people. We still have that ability to just get stuff done. But I think it's because we were built on just getting stuff done fast and just putting it out, if that makes sense. As we grow, it probably will get harder because I think obviously with a lot more people in a company, there's a lot more people you have to speak to get things done. So really for me, I don't even want I don't want lots of people in GWOP. Like I want it to stay agile and lean and I don't want all the red tape and all that kind of stuff that comes with having so many people. So yeah, I think for us it's just try and build small and efficient teams, because like I said, me and Jide were able to do so much. So having a few extra members will allow us to do a lot more. So find people who provide so much value that you don't have to hire bare people to get the exact same value.
Good answer.
Yeah, I guess we're in a slightly different position. We're a PLC. We have governance issues. There are certain standards and policies that you need to have in place, and that makes it slightly different. I think actually the old agencies, they were exactly the opposite of what Ibrahim was talking about in his company. They were siloed and slow and methodical, and demarcation was very tight. I mean, even now, to an extent, it's still there. That question, are you a creative or a suit? I've always found that insulting, actually, as a question. You're not creative, because you have a creative department. Are you a creative, or are you a suit? I don't like calling it a suit. It is derogatory.
Yeah.
And I think breaking down those barriers and silos is one way you've got to be now to be agile. So I think it's structure. I think you need to restructure to make sure that you can be agile. I think it's the culture. I think it's structure and culture and reward. So the culture needs to be one where you encourage everyone to be creative. The structure needs to reflect that. And then the reward, to get people working together quickly. So if you do, you're rewarded. I think it's those 3 things. And I think our industry is still very bad at it. And I think it's something that we're going to work very hard at, actually, over the coming months to make sure we're better. And in terms of sustainability and work-life balance, which we touched on before, I think it's a competition for talent out there, and you've got to make yourself attractive, haven't you? And you've got to understand and empathize with the talent pool, which is the millennial talent pool often for us. And people do want a work-life balance, and they do want the right benefits, and they do want the flexibility in their life. And if you don't offer it, they'll go somewhere else. So it's market forces, I think.
Oh yeah, based off what you just said, yeah, going back to the work-life balance, I think it's different having work-life balance being the founder of a company or CEO of a company compared to whether you're just an employee of a company. Because I think when you are like a founder of a company, like this is your life. Like you think about this probably every single day kind of stuff, where with like if you're working at a company, you have the ability to switch off. So I think, there's 2 different, when we talk about work-life balances, there's 2 different positions you can be seeing it from. Yeah,
I definitely agree. And even this morning, I was like, I'm going to sleep in today. I was on my phone messaging like one of my team, like, oh, have you done this? Did you remember to do this? And I was like, oh, I wanted to just have this morning to myself and not think about anything, but it does sometimes feel impossible. But I thought I'd throw it out there because I know that a lot of people are now more keen on making sure that they're taking care of themselves. But
I think that's the thing. I think you can you can do that and still take care of yourself. That's
Yeah.
what I'm not really understanding why it's perceived as a separation. You can work hard and still look after yourself
Take time. Yeah.
and time for yourself, kind of thing. And just because you're taking time out of yourself, it doesn't mean your work is going to be any less, if that makes sense. So yeah, I don't think there needs to be this massive separation. Like everyone can be accountable for their actions, and if you feel like you need to take time out, but it doesn't have to be a massive split. Yeah,
Definitely. So, Moray, re-strategy. How do you or the business approach delivering strategy to prospective clients? And B, is it something that is more or less feasible to show the value of during times of uncertainty such as COVID?
Yeah, I mean, strategy really underpins everything that we do, I would say. I would go that far. So we have our different, we call them sort of verticals. So we have a media business, we have that's a performance marketing sort of programmatic type business. We have a creative business, we have a sports business and all that. We have a business strategy communications consultancy. So we have lots of different ways of delivering it. But I think underpinning that, you know, we have our mantra, if you like, which is brutal simplicity of thought. That in life and marketing and advertising, it's easier to complicate than to simplify. But to really be effective, you need to simplify, and it's painful and difficult. And that underpins everything that we do. That process of simplification, distillation, understanding, getting rid of the rubbish. What's the core thought? What's the core idea? What's the core strategy? I think it underpins everything that we do, really. And we have lots of different tools and techniques to do that. But even if it's our performance media, our performance media business, which is very data heavy. In essence, you know, it's finding the audience and the most valuable audience you possibly can, and putting out messages and testing and reapplying, and a sort of iterative process to finding what's really effective for the client in terms of selling things at the sharp end. But even that, really, everything comes back to an understanding of the customer. And if you get that wrong, you will go wrong. And we have on many occasions. I mean, I don't want to get too political in this, but I've worked on quite a few political campaigns. But I happened to work on the independence campaign, the Scottish independence campaign, and also Brexit. We got bought in very late on Brexit. I hasten to add, that's my little disclaimer and caveat. This was to stay in the EU. And all the thinking was wrong. And all the thinking was wrong because it didn't really understand the audience. Even at the end, and I would say we were guilty of this as well. We were putting out, it never ran. Nothing ever ran. That's a separate story about for hours. But even then, it was like everyone who is an expert who knows about the economy, who knows about the future of this country, is saying that this will destroy jobs, will destroy careers, will destroy our society. All the experts are saying that. Obama is saying it. The Pope is saying it. Everyone is saying it. And that was a complete misunderstanding of what was going on. What people were actually thinking was, no, you will do worse. You, the expert, the privileged, the rich, you will do worse. I have already done badly, and I will continue to do badly. So it was there wasn't a full understanding of what was really going on. Anyway, I'm getting slightly sidetracked on that, but I suppose all I'm really saying is understanding your audience and strategy, and deeply understanding it, not necessarily what they say, but what they're thinking, is one of the endless fascinating parts of our job, isn't it? I don't know if I answered the question there, but
you did.
Some of it.
Thank you. Another question, one for Ibrahim. Ibrahim, did you start off as a solopreneur? And how did you begin to build your team?
No, I started business with a business partner. He made an investment group in university where a group of friends came together to basically invest in business ideas together. And we had a business idea before, and that was a complete flop with everyone else. But within that process, we realized me and him work well together. And then GWOP was the second idea. Building a team has been like a process. Up until March, we've had teams, but it's just been like voluntary contributors and voluntary editors. So that was a process of just people wanting to work with us, and we saw talent in certain people and was like, yeah, join the team kind of thing. But yeah, in March, we actually hired people, and that was like a whole another process. And it was literally like a lot of interviews, a lot of getting to speak to people. We had people in, and even during that period, we had to like filter some people out and hire new people. So yeah, that's a new experience for us. So far, after filtering, it's been great. But it has been like a long journey to get into this point, because some of the people we've hired were some of the voluntary contributors that were with us when we were just asking people to do it for free. So yeah, I'll say it's a process. You're not going to get the right team straight away. It's literally, you have to be able to like filter through and then get to your team of Avengers.
Thank you. Thank you for speaking about having to filter through as well, because I've had experiences where I've worked with people and it's not worked out, and I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to do? But it's just part of the process. Question for Moray. So Moray, the challenges that you speak of are inevitable. New level, new devil. Do you think you would have got to where you are if you were Black, a woman, or physically challenged?
Almost impossible to answer, but I'm going to answer it. Do you know, I remember I went to a dinner actually, which was it was the Women's Advertising Club of London. It was obviously female only, but they invited men for the dinner, and they had the head of MI5 there, who was, it wasn't Steele Remington, whatever her name was, but it was the other lady who was the, I think the second, maybe no, she was the first, I think the first female boss of MI5, and someone from the floor, one of the female members said, do you think it would have, exactly this question, do you think you would have got there if you'd been a man? Has your life been more difficult, and your career rather been more difficult because you're a woman? And she said it's been slightly easier. And I quite like that because it was the unexpected answer. And this, I'm not going to say it would have been easier. It's just very difficult to know. I think our industry is better on gender than it used to be. I think there are fewer women than men at the top, but but it's a growing number. It really is. It's not quite 50%, but it's beginning to get there. I think on ethnicity and on the Black community, we've talked a reasonable game, but it's fairly pitiful in terms of being reflected in our senior managers in our company. They're really few and far between. And at the moment, I will if you want go on at length. It's one of those things, so to answer your question, I try and empathize, and I suppose the answer, if you look at the number of Black people at senior level, you'd have to say no. Disabled people, you'd have to say no. Women, you'd probably give yourself more of a chance just looking at the basic statistics. And I think, you know, what we need to do is two or three different things, because whenever you can get paralyzed in these situations, not do anything, because it's too complicated, you're too fearful, or you're going to get tripped up, or someone's going to have a go at you, and you don't quite know what to say. And when I'm in any situation like that, just do something. So do something positive and good. So educate white people. Let's just on this specific Black people issue in our business. Get the culture right. Probably actually in some ways the most difficult part, I think, the most challenging is the inclusion point. Hire more people from of ethnicity, of color, through using the right headhunters who can find that talent. I mean, even last week, I had a senior person saying, you're positively discriminating for a new senior role. You know, you still have to have those conversations with people. That's illegal. No, it's not. We're not, and it's not illegal. What we're doing is looking harder for talent in minority ethnic groups. That's what we're doing. You just have to resolve to do that, and then you need to do other things as well, such as this. So you just need to start doing stuff. So to your question, yeah, I have to say yes, it would have been more quite much more difficult when I started, much more difficult. If I'd been a person of color, less a woman, and less able-bodied, yeah, I suppose it would have been more difficult. And we're doing things, but like everyone's doing things, aren't they?
And I'm glad that you've highlighted that the culture and the company structure and the way you're doing things to change things or better things, because a lot of our frustration has been around companies that are saying, you know, we're all for Black Lives Matter and we don't agree with what's happening, but we want to see things internally being done. So I'm glad that you touched on that.
Yeah, I think we should be, I'll just put it out there, I think we should all be just positive on the outlook. That's one thing.
I know you guys, one of the questions is, I know you guys said you focus on quality, but what advice would you give to someone starting out with 0 clients or 3 top tips?
What we done, again, was just us focusing on making great work. So even if you don't have clients and stuff, make sure you're doing work as if you had clients. So even when we weren't getting campaigns or whatnot, we was creating campaigns and stuff for GoUp. So creating campaign type videos that showed what we could do if we was working with a brand. So then when we started going into like agency worlds and ad world, we had stuff we could show that showed what we could do with very little. So then it made it very clear that we could do a lot with more, if that makes sense. So yeah, I'd say just focus on making your work as best as it can be. And then when the time is right, you'll have a lot to show for yourself and your work will speak for itself.
Thank you. Moray, any advice to, I'm sure you work with a lot of new agencies and new talent, and they probably do come to you with probably no to little clients. What advice would you give to that?
Yeah, look, it's really difficult. I mean, we've started lots of businesses with no clients, and if you can, we always try and, when we decide we're going to start a business with some people, we try and don't announce that we've launched until we have the client, because it does give you some momentum when you launch to say, and we're launching with a client. But most of the time we don't. And you know, it just takes, it's back to the time point that we made before, is it takes 6 months. Often it takes 6 months to get the very first client. And just patience and self-belief. You've got to believe in yourself, haven't you? Because there'll be enough people who don't. So just keep the belief and keep the energy and confidence, because again, people buy confidence, don't they? Confidence and certainty, I think, are important in our business. And if you have that confidence and you keep your energy, you will get, and you've got the talent. Let's assume you've got the talent to do well. You will get the business, and then it's often one leads to another, and very quickly.
100%.
I'm glad you said keep the belief, because I think that's one of the hardest things when you're not seeing anything at all. Good question. How do you find talent that care almost as much about the business as you do? This is one of my struggles.
I mean, we did something to begin with, and we still do this actually, is we give people equity. So, you know, one of our principles is ownership, because if you own something, you care more about it. So we give the people who run the businesses, all our different businesses, we give them equity in the company, real proper ownership as well, not sort of pretend equity. That still begs the question, I guess, is what about the other people? I mean, because that's just the partners in all the businesses around the world. And how do you spot the other people? Again, I don't have any magic answer to that. I suppose it goes back originally to just interview and getting those hungry people, who really want to work hard and are talented. It's very difficult to spot. I think there's not an easy, there's no formula.
Yeah, I think it's definitely not easy. One of the things that I use to measure is what people have done for themselves, based off what they say they want to do. So like, let's say if you're a if you say you want to be a music journalist, have you started your own blog? Have you been writing every single day on your blog, etc., etc.? Because it's not you coming to go up that's gonna instill that into you. You have to have that installed, if that makes sense. So I can, when I'm looking, I kind of like judge what people have done before, to see if they really want it. Because I have this saying of like, people say they want it, but do you like really, really want it? Because if you really want it, you'll make it happen. So if you're not already taking the steps to make it happen, then you don't really, really want it. So yeah, that's how I tend to, and in this process of like recruiting people, that's how I filtered a lot of people. So yeah, it's more about the work, the action in it, less about the talk.
But I guess it's also down to us once people arrive, isn't it? That they join a culture which is energizing and that they want to work with. And again, I know this is quite unhealthy in some ways, but I remember, you know, when we started, someone saying to me, I said, "How was your weekend?" On a Monday, and they said, "I woke up yesterday and thought, damn, I can't go to work." And you know, when you have that in your culture, that people love coming to work. So I think it's on you to an extent, isn't it, that you create somewhere that people just want to be.
Definitely.
That's a good point. It both balance, you know. What do you feel is most important, PR or marketing or customer service?
Now I'm gonna say, if you do good customer service, that would lead to good PR, I think. Stuff, so you wouldn't have to invest in PR and marketing, because if you're doing good customer service, it will do the rest. It's that whole thing of value. If you're providing as much value as you can to your customers, they will go and speak about you, and you can't buy that.
Yeah, there's a famous advertising quote, which is, you can only sell a bad product once, and because people discover that it's bad. So customer service, I would see as part of the product, and just being really good at what you do. And it's difficult to sell a bad product, as I said. So I think I'd agree. It's customer service, the quality of the product, the quality of the experience, or if it's a service, if you are selling something, is the foundation, really.
Thank you. Another question. Well, it's about working for free at the start of building your business. What do you do when you need to pay others to do work and you're out of favors? That's a good question. Yeah.
Can I answer this question?
Okay, go ahead, Akil.
I'm sorry, I had to come answer this question because this is a big lesson that I learned from making Saturday school. Make the pie bigger. Like, if you're here by yourself and you're sweating and the pie, and you can't do any more work, you can't get any more people in for the same, say, $5,000, but you know the work's gonna still hurt. You need to make that pie bigger. How do you make that? With that extra person, how much more value can you add to make this service now worth 10 grand, where you can now pay everybody appropriately and still have profit? A big example was when we started Saturday school, I was working with Renee. We were pulling up like £500. We were pulling up £500 a time, and I realized if I wanted to pay Renee to go out there and do a lot of work and run and chase people, I was like, that £500 ain't gonna split between us, not at all. Like, I want to get paid for teaching. That £500 to pay my rent, whatever. And then I was like, okay, how do I make £1,000? So how do I make sure I paid myself, Renee's covered, and then there's money left over? And what we ended up starting to do is we said, okay, £500 is 15 tickets, and then £1,000 is 30 tickets. Congratulations, we need to go now make 30 tickets. And I had Renee on my side because she was my team member now. So it's not like I had to double myself. No, we had a team, our team grew. And so we just made the pie bigger. I'm sorry for jumping in, but I just thought that story was very effective to teach someone how to do that. But yeah, enjoy it. Sorry about
that. Thank you. Someone just said, Akil, I agree. Akil, you might have to come back. Someone just said, Akil, I agree, but that's a lot easier said than done if you don't have that experience or know-how. Scaling up is a skill. That's true.
It's every journey. Like, if you're gonna make the step, I realized that if I was dying making that £500, Like, I realized I was burnt out because the way the old model used to be, I used to ask Moray, I used to come chase everyone and ask them to buy tickets. Like, and then I used to go and chase people to go get bumps on seats for the classes. Like, I was tired out, I was burnt out, I was strung out. So there was no way on earth that I was gonna go and do this. Of course, it was a challenge. Me and Renee sweated the first couple months to get 30 people. I did anyway, and I was stressing her out about it. But I sweated to get that happen. But I understood that making the step to transition towards a bigger pie was much better than me sitting here still trying to squeeze this small pie and dying from it. It just didn't make sense. It just didn't make sense.
I call it learn as you grow.
Take that one.
Very good.
Yeah. Moray or Ibrahim, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think what you said is completely true.
You lot have been talking facts though. Like, I've been sitting here taking notes. I've got a lot of notes. So thank you. I've had a bit of a learning session here today as well.
Me too.
You got another question. I'm gonna leave you up to it, but I just thought that was important because I don't want anyone to die thinking they can't get growth.
Thank you, Akil. We have a question for Ibrahim. Ibrahim, you mentioned youth culture is at the heart of your business. Do you approach your work more from a data-driven standpoint or more from a grassroots perspective, or both? That's a really good question.
We approach it from a grassroots perspective. That's always been our thing. So even if you go look right now, we haven't even got the maddest numbers. We haven't got the largest Instagram following. We don't like, that's not what we sell, but we have the most, we can openly say we're one of the companies that have a lot of impact in our space, offline and online, if that makes sense. And we're able to reach people based off doing it organically rather than just looking at stats and just doing stuff to get views or just doing stuff to, be seen bigger. The fact that we keep it grassroots perspective allows it to reach more people because it's more authentic. So we go on that strand rather than just doing stuff for views. We try and authenticity first, purpose first, and then it will impact and reach more people.
Thank you. Moray, do you have anything to add to that? I don't know if any of the talent that you work with are kind of doing anything along the same lines. Have you noticed any themes that have come up surrounding that?
Data or grassroots, I mean, I suppose the equivalent at the heart of our business is the sort of art and science question. And it's the big debate in our industry, and you have to do both. You have to be doing both. You absolutely need to be on the data, on the targeting, on the personalization, on the programmatic, on the various platforms that can deliver that, either through your own tech or through partnerships with Adobe or Google or however you do. You've got to be able to deliver that. But at the same time, you've got to remain, I wouldn't say that's not a creative business, because you need skill to do that and there's judgment involved. But the much more creative end of our business, which is taking leaps where through originality and imagination, you come up with something which is just a multiplier effect on a client's business, which you could never have got from data. I mean, one of the ones I liked reasonably recently was when we did PPI, actually, people to claim for the insurance mis-selling on behalf of the FCA. And we had, I don't know if anyone ever saw it, but it was a sort of severed Arnie Schwarzenegger head shouting at people. And you think, why? Where did that come from? And it's those sort of creative, but it worked. And it worked really well. And so I think just those pure creative leaps are still one of the joys of the business. But you've got to be doing both, really.
Because my thing is as well, I always say the saying of like, you can buy reach, but you can't buy impact. But obviously, you need the reach kind of goes into the impact. So it's kind of, if you focus on the impact, it'll reach a lot more people. So then you can look at the data and stuff. But I wouldn't do data. I would say balance the data-driven decisions with what works from your feelings, if that makes sense.
Question to both of you. When you first began, did you have a clear vision for your business, or did it develop over time?
Yeah, I think you have a clear vision based on the long term, but you're always going to have to adapt because you can't control what happens with time. So the thing you write on your paper today is definitely not going to be what's there in like 10, 20 years, because what you're making your decisions about in the future today is based on what's happening today. But in 5, 10 years, that's going to change. And if you're not able to adapt, and if you're just like, no, it has to be what's on that paper, it has to be what's on that paper, you're probably gonna lose out in the long run. So yeah, I would say there's certain things that can be in the vision that remain the same, but let's say how you get there or what that looks like might change, and you might just have to adapt with it. So like when we started this magazine, I never thought that we was going to own a podcast studio or like a photography studio, but we've got that strand. I didn't even know about advertising worlds or like working with brands in this way, but we've had to do it, if that makes sense. So yeah, it's good to have the long-term vision, but how you get there and what it looks like might change.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I suppose our business was slightly different in that it was born out of conflict. And you know, the two brothers were kicked out, was the truth, of Saatchi and Saatchi, and I told you the story of me joining, and then suddenly you're doing this thing in the white heat of media as well. You know, we had camera crews outside the office. We had our phones bugged actually, which they apologized for, and so it was more just a survival thing. Everyone watching you, waiting for you to fail, and survival and fighting. But quickly we did, then you do develop. So we did it as we were working. We had two principles actually, and now we have three, and there's two, and the third is still how we operate in the business. One is brutal simplicity of thought, I talked about. The other is ownership, which I talked about, which means starting up businesses, not just buying them. And the other one is diversity of thought, that you will make better things if you have more different people from different backgrounds and skill sets working on. And those are the three principles that we still build they're the sort of basis of the foundations of our business.
Thank you. Question for Moray. If you are producing a product or a service that is not what the market expects, but has value and demand, do you feel it's best to compare it against convention, or just highlight the positives of the novel approach and ignore convention?
Yeah, good question. I mean, there's either can work clearly. The good old-fashioned side-by-side is tried and tested and proved over many years. Procter & Gamble are still one of the best marketers in the world, and they love a side-by-side comparison against convention. I think clarity, I was brought up, I suppose, creatively in a school of being straightforward and clear. My product is better. I suppose Dyson did it as well to an extent, didn't they? It's better to show and tell people that it's better. This is the best car in the world. I remember Charles Saatchi actually saying, not to me, but someone who was with me, right, I'm going to write the ad, and it says the best car in the world. And that's a picture of the car. You go and do me a better one. So I think being straightforward and clear, and so against convention would be my instincts, would be the best way to go. But everyone would have their own flavor on that and preference.
Thank you. We've just had a really good question pop up actually about convention. Ibrahim, how did your parents react to your career choice? Having moved back in with my West Indian parents, I'm struggling to explain my vision and career choice, as I'm clearly not going to be a doctor or a lawyer.
Yeah. I'm just gonna be like totally honest and stuff. Yeah. To be honest, for me, it wasn't their choice. It's that simple. It was like, this is my life. This is what I'm gonna do. You don't have to be happy. I'm not gonna ask you for anything. Just allow me to do what I'm doing, and then we'll make it happen. So for me, I think just having a confidence in what you're trying to achieve and trying to do should basically get rid of any doubt. Like, I don't need to, regardless if they're my parent, my brother, my sister, I'm doing this for myself. I shouldn't have to get approval from anyone else. So for me, it was just like, this is what I'm doing, and that's it, kind of thing. Yeah.
Thank you. Moray, do you have anything to add to that? I mean, being in advertising and obviously being a father, what would you advise other parents that might be saying, no, this is not a viable career to get into?
Well, you know, it's interesting because I've got older teenagers, and I've done quite well, and they're aware that I've done quite well. So they're in an interesting space, I think, in their heads. And one of them said the other day, I might want to be a hairdresser. How do you feel about that? And I said, I'd be absolutely fine with you being a hairdresser, as long as you're a really good one. As long as that's really what you want to do. And as long as you're really passionate, you're going to enjoy it, then that's fine. What about a plumber? I'd be fine, but the same rules apply. And I think that's just a bit of fear, perhaps, that, you know, that what they're trying to say is that I may not do as well as you. Do you have a problem with that? No, I don't. Because doing well is not about money and status. I know that you may say that's easy for me to say because I've got some of that, and I suppose it is. But I think if people want to, it's about doing something that is going to make you much of the time fulfilled, isn't it? Is what I say to my teenagers.
Thank you both. So I just want to thank you both for your transparency today as well. There's a lot of questions and we're not going to get through them all, so I apologize in advance, everybody. But is there anything that the both of you would like to leave us all with going forward? You know, the lockdown has eased, everyone's going back to I don't want to call it normality, but things are going back to a different kind of normal now. So what would you like to leave everybody with today?
I think for me, I would say focus on what makes you happy and just keep going at it. Like, and that happiness will turn to like your reality in some time. There may be hard times in the happiness or in the journey, but yeah, if you want this to be a long-term thing, you're gonna have to build the roots and just do it. Like, there should be no excuses, especially in the time we're in, to not make what you want happen. Like, we've got a massive knowledge, a massive wealth. There's loads of opportunities around the place. Yeah, it's not meant to be easy, but once you do hit that tipping point, you'll be fine. So yeah, just go for it.
Thank you, Ibrahim.
Yeah, I think perhaps I'd say what I've found just personally in the last 4 months is that it's relentless. It is relentless, this looking at this thing. And it's quite draining as well. And you have good days and bad days, and you have energized days and not. And I think I would say, given all of that, that it is difficult, and it for all the obvious reasons, and we'll all be going through different stuff, but find people who can energize and inspire you, because you're going to have some bad days, and hang out with the people more often who energize and inspire you, because you're going to need the energy from that.
I love that. Thank you.
That's a good one. That's a very good one.
That's a very good one, because I've had many moments. Akil will tell you I've had many moments and I'm like, Akil, help me. So it is helpful to have people that can do that for you.
I've had to cut out people who drain that energy from you, and like not be around people like that. So yeah, that's a very good point.
Yeah, boundaries, that's the word. That's been a big word for me this 4 months. Thank you so much, everyone. We are finished right on time, which is amazing because I like to be on time.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks. I've enjoyed.